an architectural look at the modern metabolic biology. I am Marisa Hofer. Let's bypass the marketing narratives immediately. If we look objectively at the current distribution landscape of a GLP-1 receptors agonist, we observe a profound shift. We are no longer discussing a targeted clinical intervention for severe refractory metabolic dysfunction. We are witnessing the mass commercialization of a lifestyle shortcut. A significant percentage of these individuals currently sourcing these compounds are doing so under the banner of aesthetic optimization. They are looking to compress a fat loss phase, fit into a smaller clothing size, or satisfy an acute societal pressure to lean out rapidly. There is a distinct biological danger when a high-clearance medical intervention is repurposed for casual cosmetic convenience. The individual seeking a rapid aesthetic fix is often the person least equipped to handle the severe, unpublicized structural attacks these drugs levy on a human physiology. While pharmaceutical corporations and legacy distribution channels are eager to supply this unprecedented demand, they are largely silent on a structural liquidation occurring beneath the surface. You are being sold a weight loss dream, but if you do not understand the underlying cellular ledger, you are quietly paying for it with the destruction of your body composition. Today, we are past the scale weight to expose the reality of GLP-1 starvation, the metabolic rebound, and the clinical blind spot the prescriptive authorities must be held accountable for. To understand why casual GLP-1 utilization is fundamentally altering body composition, we must analyze how these compounds interact with the human satiety and nutrient signaling pathways. GLP-1 receptors agonists operate by profoundly delaying gastric emptying and hyperactivating central satiety centers in the brain. The result is not a state of controlled caloric restriction, it is a state of chemically enforced acute semi-starvation. Appetite is suppressed so aggressively that the native drive to consume amino acid is entirely broken. For any high-performance athlete, the advanced biohacker, or clinical patient, the preservation of a lean skeletal muscle mass is entirely dependent on meeting a threshold of essential amino acid to stimulate muscle protein synthesis via the empty or air pathway. When a compound forces an individual into an uncontrolled extreme protein deficit, MPS drops to a functional floor. The human body is a survival-driven ecosystem. When faced with an acute energy deficit and an absence of incoming amino acids, it does not politely discriminate between adipose tissue and skeletal muscle. It catabolizes whatever tissue requires the highest metabolic upkeep. In standard lifestyle-driven fat loss protocols, a well-engineered caloric deficit typically results in a lean mass loss roughly 20 to 25%. However, emerging clinical tracking of synthetic GLP-1 intervention reveals a catastrophic variance. Up to 40 to 45% of the weight loss is coming directly from the lean skeletal muscle architecture. Let that sink in. You are not executing a fat loss protocol. You are executing systemic mass liquidation. You are shrinking the scale by systematically dismantling your body's primary endocrine organ. It is a structural framework and it is primary mechanical engine. For an athlete or an individual focused on longevity, This isn't a progress, it is accelerated chemically induced sarcopenia. What happens when the cosmetic cycle ends? This is the point where the commercial narrative completely fractures. A skeletal muscle tissue is not just for movement, it's for your primary site for glucose disposal and the fundamental driver of your basal metabolic rate, BMR. Every kilogram of muscle architecture you liquidate represents a permanent downward calibration of your baseline daily caloric expenditure. When an individual archives their target aesthetic scale weight and sees their own GLP-1's administration, they do not return to a normal metabolic baseline. They enter a phase of profound physiological vulnerability. The satiety crash. What happens? As the synthetic peptide clears the system, gastric motility returns and central satiety suppression vanishes. The native appetite returns, often with a compensatory hyperphagic drive driven by starvation signals. And the downward calibration engine. The individual now possesses the appetite of the past self, but the metabolic engine of a vastly smaller, structurally degraded body. Because their BMR has been systematically compromised by the loss of up to 45% of their muscle mass, their caloric ceiling is drastically lower than it was pre-cycle. The result is a brutal GLP-1's rebound effect. The body rapidly stores incoming energy, but because the mechanical stimulus and the hormonal environment are suboptimal, the weight is regained almost exclusively as adipose tissue. The biological ledger doesn't lie. You end up at the exact same weight, or even fatter, but with significantly less muscles, loose skin, and a suppressed metabolic baseline, and a degraded structural composition. The shortcut has effectively bankrupted the architecture. I want to speak directly to the clinicians, the anti-aging practitioners, and the biohacking consultants who are currently prescribing or recommending these compounds to individuals who do not meet the strict medical criteria for metabolic illness. If you are facilitating the distribution of these peptides for casual cosmetic use without mandating intensive tracked protein targets, heavy mechanical resistant protocols, and comprehensive body composition tracking, then we need to reevaluate the nature of your practice. You are fully aware of the clinical data surrounding lean mass wasting. You understand the pharmacokinetics of receptors' downregulation of metabolic adaptations. Therefore, if you fail to explicitly warn your clients that they are trading lifetime metabolic health for short-term cosmetic shift, you are choosing convenience over clinical integrity. Prescribing a metabolic decelerator to an individual with an already functional metabolism simply to satisfy an aesthetic timeline is not health care. It is a running on a premium cosmetic marketplace with medical credentials. When these patients return to your clinics in 12 to 24 months, exhibiting severe metabolic resistance, sarcopenic obesity, and compromised functional strength, that outcome will not be an unpredicted side effect. It will be the direct logical result of an intervention that favored superficial metrics over systemic architecture. The data is available now. The responsibility is yours. To those listening who are considering this intervention, evaluate your true biological intent. If your goal is actual longevity, physical capability, and metabolic sovereignty, you must accept that there are no biological free lunches. Every chemical shortcut carries a hidden structural tax that must eventually be settled. True mastery is built, not injected. Calibrate your inputs. Protect the architecture. I'm Marisa Hofer, and I will see you in the next calibration.